Okay, hi everyone. My name is Rachel Gallagher, and I'm the Executive Treasurer of Student Government this year.
And I am Bailey McLaughlin, and I'm the Director of Communications on Student Government this year.
So we know everything's been a little kind of confusing, so we want to provide some general updates in terms of club activity. So that's what our next following things will be going over. So first, we do want to kind of talk about budgeting since that's on a lot of people's minds. So on September 8th, you all should have received an email for the Center for Student Engagement. This contained a link to the clubs and organizations' fall guidance page. This page is an excellent resource to refer back to throughout the semester for questions or any concerns you might have regarding budgeting, Royal Sync, hosting virtual events, and even so much more as the semester continues to change. So just in general, when you have questions regarding any of that, like that's a good, excellent resource to refer back to first and foremost. But additionally, in that email, we touched upon Transact, which is ufsclubbudgets.com. Although Transact isn't super pretty on the eyes, we know it's a very familiar platform for all of you, and we want to avoid causing any unnecessary confusion for you all this year. So this was kind of why we went about this route. You can access your Transact portal anytime by selecting it under the Resources tab that is located on the Royal Sync homepage. If you haven't used the platform before, you have to first create an account before accessing your club's portal. At this time, we recommend only the treasurer and the president of your club or organization do so, just because it can be a bit confusing, so it's easier to have only like two eyes really looking at it. But again, if you have any questions regarding Transact, you can always reach out about that. I know it can be a little confusing to set up the account or if you join the wrong portal, so feel free to always reach out upon that. Once you access your portal, you'll see that we kind of did change our direction in allocating student government funds. In the past, we used to allocate funds to specific events and line item requests, but this year we did transition to lump sum budgeting. Our reasoning behind this process is to ensure that your club operations can adapt a lot more easily as well as navigate during this pandemic. And we understand that a lot of drastic changes have been happening, so we don't want them to continue to really affect your ability to engage as a club. So in terms of, lump sum budgeting, our spending process has also changed a little bit, which we'll get to in a little bit later. The amount you were allocated might seem a little odd, but we had to calculate these amounts based on previous allocations, as well as in regard to the amount that was available for us to allocate this year. If you had filed for an appeal or new initiative funding that was not a one-time expense in the past, that will be reflected in your allocation this year. We understand quite a few of you received budget reductions due to it being a difficult allocation year. However, we do have a process in place called supplemental funding through which you'll be able to request additional funding if your lump sum kind of amount poses as a threat to your ability to engage as a club. In regard to changing how you can really use your allocation, again, it is lump sum budgeting. So this year for spending, in order to make a purchase using SG allocated funds, you have to first fill out a request form using the student government spending request form, which is located on Royal Sync. This form is reviewed by both me and Trisha in order to make sure funds are being used towards events or expenses that fall within our adapted budgeting guidelines for the fall 2020 semester. It can also be found on the club and organization's guidance page, as well as our student government spending request form, these kind of adapted guidelines. In order to kind of adapt to the pandemic, we have expanded what we typically fund in order to account for expenses for club activities that are necessary during the pandemic. So this would include gift cards for trivia nights, which we have seen a few of you putting on, and they have been very successful. At this time, we request that club sports also be using this form to file for expenses, as we kind of have to all moderate any spending going on, even if it's regarding club sports. So every club and organization should be using this spending request form. So next, Bailey's gonna kind of talk to us a little bit about community service. So take it away, Bailey.
So right now, community service has been waived for the fall semester, which we will reevaluate in the spring, but for this semester, we are not requiring it. And we understand that safety is a crucial element to many clubs and organizations, as well as service is something that is enjoyed in general, but we want to make sure everyone's safe and playing their part in the pandemic. So that's why we're not requiring service for this semester. But if you have completed service already, it will be accounted for and your club and organization will get credit. So that's like fall move-in volunteers and stuff like that. So if that's already documented, you can send that in, but we're not requiring you to do it. And if you are interested in service though, because we know people love it, recommend you reach out to the Center for Service and Social Justice to find virtual activities and service events. They have a few new things going on, like We Care Wednesdays and Craft for a Cause and other things like that. So if you want to get involved, definitely get involved, but not required for your club.
And so the next quick thing we just kind of want to cover are dues. So additionally, in this email that you received earlier in September, we did discuss how we discourage the collection of dues. We want to ensure that clubs are accessible to all individuals, and we understand that cost can be kind of a boundary to that and a barrier. So we want to make sure that that wouldn't get in the way of any student engagement. But I do understand, as well as the rest of student government, that sometimes due collection is necessary for club operations. So if you are in this kind of realm, you can still collect dues, just make sure you're doing it safely and within the different guidelines of the pandemic and our university. Additionally, in regard to dues, although it's not really dues, but the tier system requirement has been waived for club sports for the fall semester, and we will be looking to reevaluate that in the spring. And then Bailey, if you had anything to add about advertisement.
Yes. So my job is kind of running the student government outward facing communication. So really that just means like the Instagram and stuff like that. So if you have an event that you would really like to promote, feel free to DM it to U of S SG and we will put it on our story and make sure to get the word out. So feel free to do that.
All right. Thank you, everyone. As always, you can reach out to either of us for any questions. If you have a direct question about kind of anything related to funding, you can email at sgtreasurer@scranton.edu, or if it's a general student government question, studentgovernment@scranton.edu. Thank you.